over to Stephanie, who will introduce our panelists.
Okay. I received a few biographies from our panelists, but I think it's more fitting first to just allow the panelists to introduce themselves so that you can hear directly from them who they are, just exactly how they found themselves to be a part of this panel. And so I will begin with Mr. Delano de Souza, Dr. Delano de Souza. You can just go ahead and introduce yourself, please.
All right, good evening, and thank you for having me as a member of this distinguished panel. It's good to see some very familiar faces in the form of the former presidents whom I've served with over the years. Like Stephanie would have said, I'm Delano de Souza, I'm Vincentian. I would have spent several years on the Guild of Students. I would have been associated with the Sherlock Hall before. Then I went on to be the postgraduate representative for 2 years, and then I moved on to be Guild president. And basically now I'm an assistant lecturer in the Department of Economics at the University of West Indies Cable Campus. Some of you may know me in terms of being my students, others soon to know me if you're in the Department of Economics. And this is basically who I am. How I got involved in the Guild is something I've always had in terms of student leadership and the importance of giving back. I continue in that stride. And so when the opportunity presented itself to serve on the Guild of Students in different capacities, I jumped at it, and it's been very rewarding and enriching, and I continue to support the Guild of Students to this day.
Thank you for that, Dr. De Souza. Moving swiftly along to Mr. Damani Paris.
Thank you, and good evening. My name is Damani Paris, as mentioned. I would have been the president of the Guild for 2 years, I believe, between 2013 and 2015. I'm a consultant at the University of the West Indies. I'm a project manager there, project management consultant, and I guess really that's all I have to say for now. I will get into the details of my service on the Guild and what that was like. As Mr. De Souza would have mentioned, very familiar faces here coming down through the years. And it's very, very much a pleasure to be with you this evening to engage in this discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Paris, and we look forward to your contributions this evening. Up next, we have Mr. Kai Bridgewater, and I just want to say that Kai is joining us from UK right now, so it's about 1:32 o'clock his time. So again, thank you so much, Kai, for making the extra effort to be here with us this evening. We really do appreciate it. So go ahead.
Thank you very much, and good night, everyone. Honestly, that just goes to show that I'm always committed to the Guild of Students. I think that the Guild is a wonderful experience, but also a wonderful platform for young leaders. And so I just always want to support it. And so I'm very happy to be here tonight. As she said, my name is Kai Bridgewater. I would have served as a Frank Worrell Hall chairman before becoming president of the Guild of Students, one of my proudest achievements to date. After leaving the Guild, I went on to do my master's in Oxford, and now I'm working in the UK, in London, as an investment banker at Credit Suisse. But I put all my successes that happened afterwards to the formative experience that the Guild of Students provided with me. Not only just as a leader of the Student Council, but even just as a student myself, I felt like it was so important to be politically aware, to care about my representatives, to have issues and voice them, and be an advocate without being a leader first. I think that was super important. I think that UWI provided that platform. And then when the chance to serve came around, it was a no-brainer for me to go put myself forward. And with that being said, I just always want to encourage everyone to get involved. I want to big up the Guild. I saw that they brought back Guild Week. I think it's super important to, remember and to know your representatives. And so I just want to big up the Guild, and I'm looking forward to a really riveting panel discussion.
Thank you so much for that, Kai. moving swiftly along to Mr. David Taji Ghana. You're muted.
I'm sorry, my apologies.
Yeah.
I believe I'm a computer technician. That's sad, isn't it? Yes, I'm a former guild president. I was on the guild for 2 years before becoming guild president. 2 years served as the part-time student representative, and then becoming guild president in 2008 to 2009. I'm a lifelong guild member. I'm actually guild president. Believe it or not, I was working at University of West Indies, first time ever. And I was working there from 2000 to 2022. I'm currently there still. So because of that, I usually have a discussion with the guild members every year because they change every year. And any advice that they want, I always give, but I always tell them they make the decisions because that's how it is. So I'm here. I'll be here for a little bit longer. So that's a little bit about me. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Taji. And I just want to say that Taji, as you said, he's a great friend of the guild. He would be the one responsible for the taking of the council's portraits for numerous years. He's actually the one that took our portraits this year. So we just want to say thank you for that. Thank you for always being willing to assist the Guild of Students and helping us, advising us any way that you can. Our only female, we also only female on the panel. I believe Ms. Thatcher Lawton is actually the only female guild president, and so it is only fitting that she had to be a part of this legacy panel because really and truly, her serving as guild president is a historic feat, and she really did a lot in terms of breaking the glass ceiling. And so, Ms. Lawton, go ahead and introduce yourself, please.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Good night, everyone. I see in the group where everybody, when Kai was up, everybody's saying Worrell, Worrellites, Worrell. So let me say tonight by starting by saying Sherlock. Anyways, so my name is Thatcher Lawton. I am, of course, Sherlock. I would have served on the Guild of Students for 2 consecutive years. That's from 2019 to 2020. I vividly remember walking into that new adventure where I had to go up against 3 males. And it was in that time, there were a lot of discussions going on. Oh, she's the only female, but would she get the win that she deserves and all of that? Anyways, I came out victorious and I was the guild president. I was ready for the commitment. I knew what my purpose was. I mean, my journey wasn't very easy because I got the Guild of Students when it was COVID. So I had to deal with the rigors of COVID for 2 consecutive years. And although the journey had a lot of challenges, I found that it was rewarding as it extended to my professional and personal growth. And most importantly, I was committed to the welfare of the people. And that was important to me. I developed a genuine love for the welfare of my Blackbirds. I am so happy to be here. I love the Guild of Students. People always say, oh my, you can't stay out. No, I cannot stay out. I cannot stay out because my promise when I joined the Guild of Students was to reignite the promise of the Guild. I started out as the Faculty of Humanities and Education, and then I went on to be the Guild President, obviously, for 2 consecutive years. I love being the Guild President, even though it was challenging. I love fighting for the students. I love advocating. I love being the voice of the students. I love the commitment to the welfare of the students. I am so open tonight to answer all your questions, to have this discussion with this panel. Kai, Delano, Taji, D'Souza, all of you, I'm looking so forward for this riveting conversation. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for that, Thatcher. And last but not least, we have our current, our very own, Mr. the morale will go in the current. They go ahead and introduce yourself to the panel.
As soon as it's my turn to speak, my laptop started, my Wi-Fi started to stick. But I mean, you all would know me since I'm the current guild president. I could say that coming into my tenure, the students might be aware, the legacy might be aware, but I came into like somewhat challenging situation. Okay, not somewhat, a challenging situation. And, you know, it's something that we, as a council, or me and my team decided and knew that we had to fix. But at the same time, even though there was, you know, internal struggles in the guild, we had to have to still make sure that, you know, internal struggle in the guild is not an excuse for admin to like take over our autonomy and take our responsibilities from us. So it's a somewhat a balancing act between fighting for our independence and at the same time ensuring that we have processes in place so we could say that this is how we are doing things and this is the right way. And, you know, if you all have a problem, we open to discussion, we open to working together, but it's not a, you know, you could just force on a method onto us.
Thank you for that, Mr. President.
I was a PRO before. After I was PRO, I was TTSA president and Young Economists Association vice president. And now I'm here.
Thank you for that, Mr. President. And I really like the fact that you touched briefly on the current state of the guild, because that is actually kind of how I wanted to start tonight's conversation. So obviously we are the Guild Council, right? So the Guild Council is the executive body who is responsible for representing the entirety of the Guild of Students, right? I think there typically is some sort of, we typically use the Guild Council and Guild of Students interchangeably. And so a lot of students really don't understand that they are the Guild, right? Once you are a fully matriculated person, you form part of the guild. And what the Guild Council is there is that we are your representatives and we are the ones that will essentially take your concerns to admin, advocate on your behalf, etc., etc. And so that is one of the panelists, what is being on the Guild Council? What is your definition of being on the Guild Council, or what is the Guild wants to
Okay, I think Stephanie dropped out. So in the meantime, while we wait for her to get back in, I think the panelists understood the essence of the question. What does it mean to you to be a part of the Guild Council, or what do you see as the role of the Guild Council, particularly from the head? Because interestingly enough, all the panelists would have not just have been Guild councillors, but have been Guild presidents. So as the head of that council, what do you see as the role of the Guild Council? I guess we could start with Dr. D'Souza.
All right, thanks, Ravi. What do I see as the role of the Guild Council? I see the role of the Guild Council foremost as looking after the rights of the students. Of course, they're our constituents and they're the reason why we're here as a Guild Council. And that was always what I put at the top of my agenda. And of course, in order to do so, in order to make sure that you're advocating and ensuring that the students are well taken care of, whether it be financially, whether it be in terms of their housing, whether it be in terms of academia, in terms of their experience, a big part of that as Guild president has to do with, one, creating a strong relationship with administration. Secondly, another one would be in terms of creating a strong Guild Council. That was part of the mantra when I was Guild president. We had to put forward a united front. We had to put forward a Guild Council that was working together for the betterment of the student population. So for me, quite simply, I would say that, you know, the looking after students' well-being in basically almost every sense of the word is the role that I saw the Guild of Council performing, and one which I strive to adhere to over my year as Guild President.
All right, thank you for that, Dr. D'Souza. Mr. Paris, your view on the role of the Guild Council.
I suppose I take more of a legalistic view of the role of the Guild. The Guild is established by Ordinance 1 of the University Statutes and Ordinances, and the role it is prescribed to play is that of a union and as a student representative. And from that theoretical approach, one can distill what exactly the Guild is to undertake in terms of student representation, the supporting of student services, and really ensuring that you articulate positions that are favorable to the students, as Delano said. More particularly, that role can sometimes, and I will speak about the experience of my Guild in this specific circumstance. And Delano, who was my postgraduate rep, would be familiar with the degree to which that can become quite national at times, depending on the issues that are brought up. And for example, at the time that I was president of the Guild, there was a surprising development during the summer of my first term. Delano, I'm sure he remembers that Dr. D'Souza, you must remember that time quite well. We were planning to try to adjust budgets, and then suddenly we were facing a withdrawal of tuition fees for Barbadian students, which drastically altered the priorities of the Guild and the style of representation that became required. And so you find that there is a holistic way in which what representation often will mean. And I think that critically is a role that we have to embrace and that we have to not shy away from.
Yes, thank you for that. I liked a bit about your experience as president there, but from a general standpoint, Kai, I want to bring you in here because we have a lot of time, so we'll get into each individual experience. But Kai, I want you to speak from a general standpoint about what you think the role of the Guild of Students should be, particularly the Guild Council.
Thank you, my friend. A long time no see. So I think Delano hit the nail on the head, really. I think that the first and foremost priority of the Guild has to be to represent the students and their interests. I think that is very general as well, because you represent interests in different ways, right? You can represent their interests in terms of housing, in terms of welfare, in terms of ensuring that you represent them to administration to get proper tables or projectors in the classrooms. But I think that at the core of any Guild Council has been a deep-rooted interest in serving the students. I think that once you put that at the forefront, then you'll always have a North Star, so to speak. But I think that it's important to, one, as Delano did say, have that relationship with administration. But as Osazi spoke about, the independence of the Guild, but also being fearless in your advocacy. Don't be afraid to get well-researched and thought-out opinions and put them to administration. Because administration will respect if you come with something concrete and say, this is our position, this is where we stand, and this is why we stand for it. I think that you'll find that the administration is actually very keen to listen to the students once they're serious. But you have to be fearless because you can't just accept everything from them, right? So you have to, it's a balancing act, but I think you need to be fearless in your advocacy. And that fearlessness comes from knowing that you're on the student side. And to know you're on the student side, you have to listen to the students. You need to ensure that there are open pathways of communication between the Guild and the Guild Council, because as Stephanie said, there is a distinction. And just ensure that you speak to the students, you have town halls, you give advisories to let them know what's happening from the Guild Council side. And once you have that open dialogue, then you can be sure and grounded in your beliefs. So when you go to administration, you can be as fearless as possible. But the most important thing is always representing students' interest.
All right, thank you, Kai. That seems to be the overarching theme, representation. Taji, sorry, Mr. Ghana, I want to bring you in here and just to start off by giving your perspective on what you think the role of the Guild Council is.
Taji is fine. You know, everybody calls me Taji, so that's not a problem. Yeah, I think all of the past presidents basically hit the nail on the head. The Guild is there to represent students' interests, first and foremost. But you see, the thing is that a lot of people would want to come in the Guild and have their interests taken care of. This is where students have to kind of do research on who we're actually electing as presidents, you know, because a lot of persons would come in and, you know, if they're from a certain faculty, they might be kind of gravitate towards the problems of that faculty. But the thing is that as a Guild Council, you must do two things: listen and deliver. Listening and delivering was my slogan when I ran for Guild President, and it is the core of the Guild. You must listen to every single student. Every single student have a voice, right? And you, as Carl said, you Bridgewater, you have to be fearless in your presenting, when you're presenting the issues to the administration. But the thing is that you just don't go to administration with the problems of the students, right? You as a council sit down and as talk to the students as well in terms of finding a solution. So when you go to the meetings, you're not just going to the meetings with the voice of the Guild, you're going to the meeting with the voice of the students, with the problems and a tentative solution to the problems. And that is where you get things start to happen. Because you're not just coming, oh, we're bombarding administration with problems. No, you come in with the problems that they have and the solution, so that you would definitely get things going for the student body. And that's how you do it.
I like that a lot, Taji. Solutions-based advocacy. Thank you very much for that. Thatcher, the main jewel in our crown tonight. Your view on what you think the role of the, I know you touched on it a bit earlier, but if you can go in a little bit deeper into what you think the role of the
Absolutely. So of course, I agree with the legends talking about representation. That's first and foremost. I would add leadership and advocacy to it as well, and a kind of a real partnership with the students, you know, because the Guild of Students is the students, and we're representing, we're advocating, we are ensuring that leadership, through leadership, we represent all the students. But I want to add as well that I think apart from representing the students, you know, probably like, you know, forming these relationships, these connectivity with administration to solve these student issues, to bring across the student issues and problems. As the Guild of Students, we ought to embrace diversity and promote a culture of inclusion for all of the students. And I feel like one of the strengths that I've developed being Guild President and working on the Guild of Students would have been connectedness. I think connectedness is very much important. You can't be the Guild of Students, you know, like as in the professional body minus the student population, and not connect to the students, not connect with the students, because at the end of the day, one of the goals is also to improve the students' experience, both academically and socially. So I think connectedness is very important. For the Guild of Students, you must have empathy. Empathy is very important, very, very important, and listening is also very important. So for me, I take away connectedness, empathy, and being a good listener. That is very much important. And again, the other president touched on advocacy, representation, leadership. Of course, we know that we are the overall we ensure the financial health of the Guild of Students, because students are paying their fees, of course, and they want to see that, it is used to the benefit of them, used to benefit them. They're benefiting from it as well. So that's part of it. But I love the aspect of connectedness and embracing and promoting diversity and inclusion and ensuring that we improve the student experience in any way possible.
All right, thank you very much for that, Thatcher, very experienced guild leader there. Osazi, I hope that you were taking note. I'm going to throw the same question to you, but of course you would have heard some of the recurring themes: advocacy, representation, empathy, and so on. But having been at the start of your guild presidency now for just a couple of months, what would you say from the president's perspective, in your view, is the role of the Guild Council?
I mean, obviously, I kind of agree with the sentiment shared before. Like when Kai was speaking, I was like, damn, this man's spitting facts. Like, it's true. You had to play a role where you, firstly, and I think more than one panelist mentioned it, you present solutions. Admin don't want you to sit in steering committee or academic board to tell them a problem. I think it's most of the problems well known. You have to come with solutions, pitch these solutions at them. But I think you all kind of did a good job at explaining the advocacy and student representation. So I could just add this one more point, whereby, by serving on the guild or being a guild president, you have this unique opportunity to represent more than just the UE students. Because if you really think about it, university age students or UE students across the region represents an extremely large demographic of society. And students, as they go through life, they go up to university, they can be affected by the policy that you put forward as a guild or as a guild president. So something that you present in a meeting or proposal that you pitch has the ability to change the lives of people right across the Caribbean region. Something as simple as, I think it was my initiative of a previous president, where they include a history course as a foundation course or a language course as a foundation course across the university. You potentially change the lives of so many UE students, and then you have the ability to impact the entire region just through policy that you pitch to UE and that is implemented. So I just want to add that on top of the student representation, on top of advocating, being connected with the students and representing their interests, you have a genuine opportunity to change the entire region.
All right, thank you for that, Mr. President. And so I know that there are lots of councillors in the meeting with us this evening, and so I just want to reiterate some of the themes that our presidents mentioned: advocacy for sure, representation. Thatcher mentioned empathy. I think that is a big one. And I'll just close off with Osazi saying that you literally have the opportunity to change a generation just by your policies at the Guild of Students, depending on how you advocate for them at the administrative level. If they implemented something as simple as putting a language course as a foundation course, do you know what that can do for a generation of students who pass through, if they get to learn Spanish, Chinese? Thatcher, I know, is very big on Spanish, Chinese, French, what have you. And so what we do at the Guild, the role of the Guild, encompassing all of those themes is very, very critical. Stephanie, you are back with us.
Sorry for that, guys. I'm actually in Trinidad right now at the ICGC, and the Wi-Fi here is a little dodgy, so I might be popping in and out of the call right now. And I agree so much with this sentiment, especially as you guys, with Kai particularly and Osazi, who mentioned that resisting, because naturally we are students ourselves. And I think that is something that we need to highlight, because I think students often forget that as Guild councillors, we are students. And so on top of going through the whole burden and stress of UE, we still have to navigate with administration, we still have to navigate with representing for them and coming up with solutions to problems that we ourselves experience and we ourselves are affected by. And so something that Mr. Paris said kind of really set the scene for the next the direction I want to discuss to take. And he mentioned the challenges he would have faced in his time as the president, the whole issue of tuition, right? And so I kind of want to talk about the key issue or the key problem that kind of defined your presidency, that you kind of had to go through. You kind of had to overcome. Thatcher mentioned that she had no COVID and what that would have done. And so I really want to hear your different perspectives, the different issues that you would have faced, and how you really came out of that further, how you push past through that. And so, Mr. Paris, you are actually a Bayesian president, and we really don't have many of those. And the fact that you are a two-time Guild Counselor, having to navigate students, national students, now having to pay their own tuition fee. I want you to kind of just take us through that briefly, and what was your initial response? How did you overcome that?
That is such an interesting question, and I thank you for it. I will say that my initial reaction was shouting at the television, and that certainly essentially defined how I felt about that entire experience. And I mean, this also, I think, is an opportunity to present also the legacy of certain fights in the Guild, because I think that we do not often accept that while that matter began with me, it ended with Kai Bridgewater. And there is a wonderful capacity for you to be able to acknowledge that we, over generations of the Guild, were able to accomplish an outcome that we set about going for. We changed government policy. And that resonates and continues to resonate with me as one of the great victory of the Cave Hill Guild of Students. Funny enough, the issue that I think really defined the Guild in my era was not even the issue of the national fight. It was the fact that while that fight was happening, the Guild was $500,000 in debt. So I was also faced with the dual challenge of trying to ensure that I did not have the entire future generations of the Guild ruined by the fact that there was an enormous debt passing along concurrently on our books. And I decided it had to end with me, and I made it my goal to work with my counsel, Dr. D'Souza. Dr. D'Souza was extremely instrumental in ensuring that we were successful in arresting that debt and not strangling the Guild in the future. And our consistent efforts over generations yet again ensured that was something that was successfully recalled. So very often you inherit these circumstances, good or bad, and what the future of the Guild looks like often depends on the decisions that persons far back in the past have made.
All right, Mr. Paris, now you unpacked a number of things there, and so I want to stick with you, and you mentioned Dr. D'Souza, so we'll bring him in. But just so I'm clear in my mind, and I would hope also for the benefit of the audience, the tuition challenge, what exactly was that challenge that you had? Was it that the government had implemented that tuition was reinstated, or what? I'm not.
But the government withdrew tuition support for Barbadian students.
Oh, they withdrew tuition support. Okay.
So we were at once told that by the end of the academic year,
right,
we would be facing students, and I suppose I should give the thorough history lesson on this matter. We would be facing students having to pay between $5,000 and $6,000 a year. That was at the time being covered by the government of Barbados.
Right.
Now, the obvious impact of that, as I had predicted woefully, was that we were going to lose half of the student population. So the Cave Hill campus went from 9,000 students overnight to 4,000. Devastating impact. And why this was also a budgetary problem was because our budget is a function of how many students enter the system. And so I had to contend with the fact that dually I could not fast forward that debt because our budget was essentially going to be the amount that was remaining. So it would have financially ruined the guild. I remember having conversations with now Vice Chancellor Beckles about whether or not we may have to relook the guild fee simply to provide the guild an operational budget. And we were reluctant to do so, deeply reluctant, because the guild of students at Cave Hill has one of the highest guild fees across the region. So proportionally, we could not justify that. And so you found yourself in a situation just trying to ensure, because you cannot touch your guild fee and not expect administration to launch an offensive, suggesting that the amenity fee for them as well perhaps may need to relook in light of the numbers. So you also have to be aware of that politics. And so all of those circumstances combined to present what was one of the roughest challenges for a guild at a time when we were facing internal problems and had to terminate our treasurer. So, so the dynamics of that guild, and thank God for good counselors and people like Dr. D'Souza and others, the dynamics of that guild was such turbulence, so much of which you could not have anticipated when you ran for election and face that poll that year. Because over the course of the summer, all of this is what's evolving. All of this disaster, and you come into a first semester on fire.
Right. No, I thank you for that perspective. Now, I want to bring in Dr. D'Souza because I think he was your immediate successor. And you mentioned that many of the challenges would have, went past your tenure. And so, Dr. D'Souza, if we can bring you in here, Mr. Parris spoke about the tuition issue. He spoke about the fact that the guild was heavily in debt. Once you took over the reins, I don't want to ask what was your greatest challenge, but sort of what was your action plan to deal with not only some of the problems that would have come in from the tenure before you, but then of course you would have had your own unique challenges being a new president. And so what was sort of your way forward, having inherited the presidency?
Thanks for that. And the man, you're bringing back so many memories there. Some of them good, some of them very traumatic in terms of how we had to deal with some of the internal issues that we had. But I mean, it was a pleasure to work with you. Of course, we had our differences, we had our challenges as well. When I took over from Damani, and Delano's fine going forward, you don't have to say Dr. Delano's fine. We're all here just conversing about the guild. So when I took over from Damani, well, Damani had decided that he was not going to run again for a third year. And so he endorsed me. And so we went forward in terms of me running for president. Now, at the time, I had served 2 years as postgraduate representative. And at that time, I was also pursuing my PhD. And so I had a unique perspective. Also, I was working at CIBC First Caribbean at the time, and finances was my area of specialty, still is in some respects. So when we took over and we realized that we had a debt problem, we kind of went into action in terms of Damani's guild when I was there as guild postgraduate rep. The aim was to reduce the debt. I won't speak about the previous guild that left us in debt, but the guild was in tremendous debt. So we had to then go about it like Greece. If you guys remember, we had to go on, me and Damani had to design an austerity package for the Guild of Students. So we had to cut our finances in severe ways. And of course, you couple that with the fact that we had a tremendous reduction in student numbers as well, that exacerbated the problem that we had. When I took over, the issue still remained in terms of the budgetary challenge. But one of the challenges that I faced immediately in terms of where I was and some of the challenges that started to define my presidency was really a sort of a neglect of the students and a neglect of the campus the campus infrastructure by administration in some ways, particularly because of the reduced revenue as a consequence of the reduced tuition, and so a lot of students would have left. So it was a struggle not just for the Guild. So you have to be mindful of that. The administration was also suffering in terms of finances. And so we had a situation where in terms of the Guild experience, the student experience, and I'm glad that touched on that, the student experience was suffering because the Guild of students was not doing stuff that we had done in the past in terms of social activities and so on. We couldn't afford to. So the carnival, I think, down the man, if you remember, we had the Cancer Campus Carnival. We got relics for that when we had the Campus Carnival. But everybody was out for but we had to do it in order to secure the financial viability of the Guild of Students. So when I took over, one of my promises was to bring back Campus Carnival, which we did successfully. And of course, other things such as, for example, the hall accommodation faced a lot of challenges. We didn't have washing machines, we didn't have proper dryers and so on. And so that sort of became part of the issues that I was dealing with, or the things that I focused on. Bringing back the trust in the Guild of Students, because of course, the man would have mentioned the scandals with respect to the treasurer at the time. So the trust in the Guild of Students was extremely low. Yeah, it was extremely low at that particular point in time. So I had to work on bringing that back. I had to work with administration in order to start to bring up the plant, the physical plant at the campus, particularly the halls of residence. The campus classes and so on were also suffering. And then bring back the social experience for the students. So we had to bring back our FETs. We had to bring back our panel discussions. We had to do all of those things because during the austerity package, a lot of those things had to be taken out in order to reduce the debt. So we now that we sort of brought ourselves out of the debt, we now had to then reinvest and to bring back the reputation. So we spent a lot of time doing that. So for example, and we didn't just design on a package in terms of the way forward, we also designed how we wanted to tackle administration. So we knew that the halls needed new machines. We actually came up with a big proposal for the campus in terms of the washing machines and the halls of residence. So we actually got new machines for both the Frank Ward and the Sherlock Hall during that time. We got a lot of replacement done in terms of the classes. We got several things done in terms of the plan, because we brought it to administration. Listen, you can't run a campus like this. You can't have students not being able to wash their clothes. You can't have classes in the way it is. We know that you're suffering just like we're suffering, but we need to work together to ameliorate the situation. We had several challenges with respect to bringing activities back on campus. And I'm sure that the current Guild president is quite aware of how difficult it could be on the social side of getting certain events on campus, getting certain FETs, getting certain things done and working with administration. So especially when you're coming from a scenario when it had not happened for 1 or 2 years, how do you bring back Campus Carnival when there hadn't been any? Yeah. So we had to do all of those things and surmount those challenges. And I'm confident that we were able to do so. And I had a successful year as Guild president. And I think I could leave it there. And if you have any follow-ups, you could then speak.
Yeah, sure. We'll get into some of that a little later. And I want to thank you for that social aspect, because student morale is very important, and nothing boosts morale like a good BLM. So I'm glad that you were able to balance the finances of the Guild, but also maintaining that social aspect. Kai, I want to jump to you because you are not his immediate successor. If I remember correctly, I think Holas was between you two. But no doubt, as Paris would have said, there were some challenges that continued for some years on, particularly I suspect the tuition was part of that, and so revenue also might have been down. But I want to also add a little challenge that, if my memory serves me correctly, some new shuttles came in around the time of your presidency. So I want you to speak a little bit about some of the challenges and I don't want to be all doom and gloom, but some of the lows, things that made you have to fight really hard during your tenure.
Thank you. And it was just really, when Dhwani was talking, it just kind of hit me that, you stand on the shoulders of the people that came before you, right? Like, everyone set the bar at this place so that their successor could take it to the next level. And so I would say that the success of my tenure was really built on the success of all of the presidents here before me. And I'm sure the success of Thatcher and Asazi will be the same. Was the same for Thatcher and will be the same for Asazi. And I think that's really important, because you always want to leave the Guild in a better position than you left it. You don't want to leave the Guild in a place where the next Guild has to be doing an austerity package, which will then cripple the student experience for the next 2 years. That's not fair to the future Guilds. That's not fair to the future students. You should always be building on top of it. So Asazi, build on what Thatcher has done. And for anybody else in the audience who may become a guild president one day, you know, build on what Osaze has done and everyone else before you. With that being said, one of the major challenges in my period, we had a couple, was in September. I don't know if you remember, but 2 hurricanes had hit the Caribbean, bam, bam. You had Hurricane Irma and you had Hurricane Maria, and it devastated Barbuda and it devastated Dominica and it damaged other Caribbean islands. And obviously, our summer is when you do all your budgeting, your planning. We're talking budgeting, we're talking finances. We set out our plan, we say, okay, this is what we're gonna do. Then these 2 hurricanes come. And as Thatcher said, something that's very important in leadership is empathy. And so immediately we knew, all right, we're throwing that out because we need to bring back a new budget that has a carve out for significant increases in welfare to support the students from these countries. And that was very important to me because it meant that it's not just about the student experience at school, but also about actually taking care of these people and their lives. You know, many of them couldn't even contact their families back home. Many couldn't get any money from back home. And we had to take care of them in that period. And it's something I'm proud of to this day. As Osaze said, you know, it's not just about the students as well, because at the December, we reached out to corporate sponsors, etc. And I went to Dominica myself, and we gave educational items to students from 2 different primary schools to help them get back on their feet. So it's about making a difference, about being empathetic and, you know, improving the lives of not just the current students, but also the future generations, because some of those primary school students will become UE Blackbirds one day, right? And so we want to support them as well. Some other challenges that come to mind is Damani speaks about the introduction of tuition for Barbadian students. During my tenure, they actually wanted to increase the tuition for all students on the campus. And so that was a fight, of course. And, you know, we were able to get a moratorium on that, and through our advocacy, we showed them that, you know, this would really hurt the students, especially in light of the hurricanes, etc. And so we actually got the moratorium. It ended up being kicked down the road to Christians here, but we were able to at least hold that off for 1 year. Outside of that, you know, there's still, you know, the maintenance issues, the amenities issues that would plague any guild. As the finances went down, the disrepair went up. And I remember distinctly actually leading a march into the administration building to fix the lecture room in the law faculty, actually, because, you know, it was just in disrepair. They were using the projector on like this wall with a big hole at the top of it, just because they couldn't get the projector to work on the board. And so that's when I speak about, you know, being fearless, you put forward your solutions always. You always put forward your solutions, but if it's not working, you have to let them know that the students are behind you and that you're willing to take the extra step to, you know, ensure big hole in the wall. Yeah, it was really not a good look, but to ensure that they get things done. And actually within 2 days after the march, the hole was covered and there was an order sent out to get a new projector. So it just goes on a projector screen. So it just goes to show that the advocacy works, and that you always just do your best to keep the interests of the students at the center of everything you do. Be empathetic, be caring, but be leaders. And that's what I would say is how you overcome the challenges. And those are a few of mine.
Thank you so much for that very robust contribution, Kai. Before Thatcher, I'm going to come to you, but I just want to say Kai was my first guild president, and I'm glad he mentioned that march, because I remember going down to admin that building, and Kai is very diplomatic about it, but we breached the security. I remember there was security guards standing up at the bottom of the stairs, and some of us went on his arm and we pushed him and we went up because we were going to see Principal Barreto. We had enough of the mess at the law faculty, those big holes in the wall. And it turned out, Kai, if you remember, that there were a number of other issues that were raised apart from just the hole in the wall at the law faculty. And so that piece of what I would call rebel seed advocacy ended up, you know, rippling down into some of the other issues that came up during the march. Thatcher, I want to come to you now. We know what your primary challenge was, having been the president that would have led us into the unfortunate onset of the COVID pandemic. If I could just use a point of personal privilege as well, my 2 terms as a Guild councillor were served under Thatcher's leadership as president. So I have an idea firsthand of what those challenges were. So, but I will allow her to speak to that. COVID, yes, but any other challenges that you want to mention that you had during that?
Yes, absolutely. Of course, the COVID would have been the hindrance for physical activities on campus. But you were also on the council, and you know that we really tried, the different committees, the different councillors really tried, to get these activities done online. And we had attendance, sometimes we fail a bit, sometimes we pull back up, but we knew what the challenges were during the COVID pandemic. I feel like one of the greatest challenges that we have gone through would have been the financial health of our students. I didn't know, confidentially, that so many students had financial issues. As Guild of Students, they would come to you and they would sign up a welfare form, and when you pass the welfare form, approve it, and you try to analyze how much school fee they have to pay and how much you need to give them, you would see that, oh my God, there are students who actually have over 38,000, just the medical students, over 38,000 to pay, and that is when you have to develop empathy. That you set a budget for the entire year, and how do you navigate and help every student, and so I was happy that my guild was able to create a guild pantry, and I think that was first of its kind, and I'm very proud of that achievement. It would have not been possible without our very gracious sponsors in Barbados, and so I want to thank them for that. Our guild started off with 3 words, advocacy, welfare, and development. And I am seeing Ashley and Dozard right here in the group chat, and I can't pass but to make mention of her. She was the law faculty rep during my tenure, and for the law students, she fought battles behind closed doors with that contract law. We had to take it to academic board. We had to take it to campus council. It was, she really fought, and it goes to show, the numerous battles that our faculty representatives, they're very important on the Guild of Students, that they have to fight, all in the interest of the students. I must also mention, I'm seeing Amanda Jeffers as well, and she was our off-campus representative, and she poured in all of her funds, get the sponsorship, and ensure that the pantry was supported, ensure that our students, when it comes on to welfare through groceries, etc., the students off campus were well taken care of. I remember when one of the challenges we had, and I was the only guild president to stand up at the university meeting, was when the alumni wanted to bring in the Pelican Perks. So the Pelican Perks was to have the students pay $30 before being an alumni, which I thought was, very ridiculous. And I thought the Alumni Association was very lazy. And so it was in this moment I knew I had to advocate. Even when the Mona president stood with it, the St. Augustine president stood with it, everybody stood with it, even when we had, and so you'll have these nice quiet meetings with the presidents, and then they go into a meeting and go against you. But I'm saying, you can all go against me, but the K-ville students will not be paying any $30. That doesn't make any sense. The Alumni Society, they're very lazy, and they could go and get sponsorship. We have so many alumni. We have so many alumni who pass through K-ville, working big jobs, having businesses in the Caribbean, across the world, globally, they can contribute. So I thought that was very, that was very ridiculous for the students to pay an extra $30 when our students were already struggling. So under my guild presidency, we kicked away the Pelican Perks. It didn't come to fruition because all the guild presidents had to agree with it, had to approve it, and the K-ville Guild of Students didn't approve of it. I remember also another issue that we have was, you could pay for the remark of examinations. And there are students who get an F. When they pay for the remark of the examination, they get a higher grade. Now, our guild thought that it was, on the negligence of the lecturer's part. And so we thought that, it is only fair that we bring it to academic board that if the students get a higher grade than their failing grade, they should be reimbursed. And so, I mean, it was a fight with Professor Eugene Barito, but of course, you know, it was two women fighting. And I had to, you know, outside of the meetings, I had to explain to her, you know, lecturers, they have 200 students in their class. They don't go through these essays. They read the first part, the last part, and they give you a grade. You know, so it's very unfair that the students who get a higher grade would have to pay for the remark. So that was completely cut up. We saw the financial challenges, Ravi, and we would have done, you know, a lot of little videos leading up to the Gill scholarships. And so we knew that we could not give 2 scholarships, 3 scholarships. No, not for a population of 6,000 students. And so I think one of our accomplishments was the ability to give the most scholarships based on, you know, based on history, give the most scholarships to our students and make it so diverse that it flows across the faculties. That was very much, I love that we had that success. Also, I don't know if the Gill website is being used at this very moment, but we were the Guild of Students as well that created the Gill website, you know, because we wanted the students to, you know, be a little bit connected with us. And, you know, instead of always doing the paper welfare forms, etc., these things would have been done through the website. And so I want to thank Mr. Alden Gage, who actually built our Gill website. He's the current, what is he now, Ravi? He's the current publication chairperson.
Yeah, he's
publication chairperson. So I want to thank him. In my last tenure, I want to also thank the, you know, we did have our challenges, we did have our conflict here and there, and it is a part of team, you know, it is a part of when you work as a team, but at the end of the day, we didn't lose sight of our goal. And I want to thank the Gill Council of 2020-2021, because we didn't get a chance to, even though we didn't get a chance to use all our funds, we ensure that, well, use all our funds for activities. We ensure that all those funds went into welfare. And so we were able, through welfare, coupled with CHAPS, and I must say, I don't know if Ariane is in the chat right now, but she was the CHAP president for 2 consecutive years, and she did a wonderful job too. She did well at welfare, she did well at development and advocacy for the postgraduate students. And coupled with CHAPS, we were able to give over 290,000 Barbados dollars in welfare. And this couldn't be possible because obviously I had to use the counselors' funds that they had for their initiatives and activities to do this, and they were willing to, you know, assist our students who were in financial need. I guess going forward, you know, even though it was online, we were able to connect with the students. There was a connection, for sure, there was connectedness, and I feel like the students understood our commitment and purpose as the Guild of Students 2019 to 2021, that we were committed to the welfare and advancement of the students. And so welfare was our biggest. Apart from advocacy, of course, going into those meetings and advocating and fighting behind closed doors. I can't remember when Yusuf and Sydney had to do that placard out by out in front of administration building when they wanted administration to buy back the stuff for the halls of residences. So it's a team effort. It's a team effort. I mean, we fought, we went through so much. There was a time when you had this xenophobia issue coming out in the Barbados newspaper. I don't know where they get that from, because Claville is so diverse, and you know, and we the Guild of Students provide that inclusivity. And I remember when Ashley, oh my God, my constitutional chair, Ashley Dozarsdale, my constitutional chair, to be saying, write this letter, can you write this letter? And then Ravi was under fire because he was a returning officer and had to monitor that whole scene when the vice president was when the students voted out the vice president. So it came with a lot of challenges, but again, trust me, it really aided in professional development and personal development. And I know that my team, they would have taken so many different, experiences and different lessons from being on the Guild of Students. I may talk too much, so I'll let you move on, Ravi.
Thank you so much. I'm sure that the audience would recognize that those 2 years of your presidency were packed with lots of activities. Particularly the first year was very entertaining, very robust, very lively. We had a great time. And we were really hoping for some wonderful things to come, and then boom, COVID. But Thatcher, she really strapped up her boots, and we pressed forward. We made the best of it. Like she said, we did a lot in terms of welfare. And so, you know, it didn't really sadden us too much. You know, the circumstances were sad, but we did what we had to do. Taji, I'm going to come to you. I haven't forgotten you. You know, you have been president a little bit before most of us or most of the other panelists. So it's kind of easy to forget, but I haven't forgotten you. Osazi, in the lineup, since we've been following a particular path, I just want to come to you, since you are the current Guild president, the president after Thatcher. Well, there was a presidency between you, but you are the current Guild president. And no, you are the current Guild president, and we know what some of your challenges are. I know personally what some of your challenges are, but I will allow you to speak to that. You haven't had much of COVID since we are now on our way out of that, but certainly you do have some other gray areas that you are dealing with, and I will allow you, sir, to speak to those.
I like how we all ignoring that one tenure in between Tasha and I.
Certainly not intentional, sir, not intentional.
I listening to all the presidents so far, I feel like, I mean, I stand on shoulders, but I feel like I also get like a little bit of all the problems. Like they just come back and throw it all at me. So for example, let me go in order. So the fees, last year, SciTech was allowed to introduce a lab fee. And so now this year, everybody wants to introduce a fee. SOSI wanted to introduce a fee, like how, I mean, no disrespect, Dr. D'Souza, but come on, no way. Halls issues, halls on campus, like coming out of COVID, school was online for 2 years. And you know, the Caribbean, when things not in use, we just leave it and expect it to stay good. And so we had have a steering committee meeting before the semester, and we talk about, you know, what's not working, what need to fix. And they would say, yeah, man, we ready. Only a few things not ready. And then when the semester starts, you know ACs in class now working, the shuttles, the shuttles is our next problem we inherit. All of a sudden, the shuttles down. I stand up and tell students from Trinidad in the orientation. I say, no man, the shuttles, they're coming back. When the semester starts, we good. I come 2 days before the semester start, only 3 weeks into the semester, and next 2 down. And halls issues, the halls. I mean, big up my hall reps, they really advocating for the hall students. And so even though I, you know, assistant is really there pushing the fight to get the fixes done on halls. Financial issues. I wasn't $500,000 in debt, but you know, anybody who's been around or who's been aware would know that, you know, that there's been a big issue with finances in the guild. A difference in my approach though, as compared to, I guess, Damani and D'Souza is, I mean, yes, we could make the guild profitable again, but I think the difference is to try to change the system itself, because it is only so much for us to make it profitable, leave the next guild in a good place, and then due to the fact that we have a terrible system, somebody else go and plunder. So I guess that's a different approach to solving that solution. As well as the money mentioned, the removal of a counselor. Tomorrow in my AGM, I'm sure I'm gonna have to stand up and explain some resignations. But you know, as I say, I guess I inherit a lot of the problems. But at the same time, I think I could take some of these solutions, because the halls issues, as I said, the hall chair is really advocating, and it's just for me to help push it across the line. The classroom amenities and the shuttles, you could go into meetings, kind of stress the importance of these issues. I think sometimes students forget that, like for instance, ACs and classrooms not working or projectors not working. It don't really only affect the students, it also affect the lecturers. Because I sure when a lecturer go to class and he had to stand up and lecture in a hot class, that affects him as well. So it's not that, you know, the students and the staff have terribly different issues. So it's just to kind of put it forward in a way where we really targeting and trying to get a solution. But yeah, I don't really have to go on much because you all kind of explain the problems and I just come to say, yeah, I get a little bit of that, a little bit of that, a little bit of this. But I mean, also, I guess coming in said the girl had a bit of a reputational damage. Whereas I'm not sure in the Mani's time if the general student population would have been aware that the guild is in debt. But I think the difference in my tenure coming in is that everybody is aware that they had this financial struggle or this situation. And so everybody's kind of looking to see what is done about it. And we also lose a lot of student confidence. At the start of the tenure, even like right after the election, everybody is telling me, you know, SARS is going to be real hard. It's going to take a while to rebuild the guild. It's going to take years. You know, admin evil, they're not going to work with you. But it's a good thing I hadn't because, you know, I don't really like to listen to that. Because in my mind, one tenure before the guild was kind of on a high. And if it could drop in a year, it could certainly bounce back in a year. So the intention from the jump was always to try to start with a bang, try to get these students behind us and push their issues forward. And as I said, you know, financial was you were looking for. Frugality could only get us so far. I really trying to change the processes, the financial process and some constitutional amendments. But at the same time, as Dr. D'Souza highlighted, the student engagement and support extremely important. And so even though most people would look at it as an extremely huge challenge coming in after, you know, a bad tenure, plus coming back right after COVID, like it's really an incredible opportunity to just change things and make things happen quickly altogether because, you know, campus is coming back, people coming back to campus. You had to give them something to be excited about. They're not necessarily going to be that excited about class. So you give them activities to come to. You give them that visual support of the guild. Make sure they know you. Make sure you could get their support. Speak to them. Make sure the council is outgoing. Make sure we in everybody's face. They can't say they don't know the council. And then when you have the support, it's extremely easy to sit down in a meeting with admin and say, you know, this is the problem we have. And if this is the solution we put it forward, and it's not that we want the students to riot, but at the end of the day, if we don't solve this problem, I can't stop the students from going in a particular direction. And I think because of our Freshers Week, where it really blew admin away, the amount of support we had because the numbers was insane. Some events we cater for a certain capacity and it ended up over capacity. And we really made Freshers Week happen all on our own. Like the financial process that we have in place was still a kind of, you know, the bills are locked down, the finances, even though it's our money and we keep saying that. Just by us putting off that Freshers Week, kind of during that week while we putting on events, we have to advocate and say, this is the case, this is what is going to happen. And sometimes, even though cooperation is important, like just going on and saying, this is our position and we cannot change this because this is our priority right now, that was really important. After Freshers Week, a lot of changes happen, like a lot of processes change because it's like they see, okay, they have the student support. And, you know, when you have the student support, you can really get a lot done because you're not just going on your own. You're not just going with your 25 counselors. You're going with the support of so many students who they know if you say we go into protest the shuttles, we go into shut down class, they're saying, wait, they're scared for that because we always scared of reputational damages. So if it's our protest, that's that they don't want us. So you just make your demands, kind of give them solutions and try for them to implement it. I mean, obviously, we're still in September. We haven't get everything solved. It's still working. But as a leader, you also have to understand that all this is not going to solve in a day. And so, for instance, yes, we want the ACs changing the classes. Yes, the university commit to changing the ACs, but it's not that they could just fix all the ACs tomorrow. They have to go and find the suppliers. If the suppliers don't have it, they need to get it done. And so it is a bit of a process. So you, while they give you the benefit, you give them the benefit of the doubt. You in the spirit of collaboration, you all could get a lot done. Yeah, that's me there.
All right, thank you very much, Osazi, into that insight of some of the current 10 years challenges. Taji, we definitely want to bring you in here, but obviously we have time constraints. So I want you to tie in two things for me. There was a recurring theme throughout all the past inputs about advocacy, their challenges, and there is one staple, the administration. So while you speak about your challenges, Taji, I want you to tie in your relationship personally and as Guild president with the administration at the time, especially OSS. We know as Guild councillors, as members of the Guild students, we know that OSS is a big challenge. I don't know if it was a challenge for you back then, Taji, you're going to tell us, but it certainly has been a challenge in more recent times. And so as you speak of your challenges, I want you to tie in the relationship that you had with the administration, particularly with the office of the infamous Office of Student Services.
Hi, good night. Yes. Well, to be honest with you, OSS was never a challenge for me. One, they had a different leader. And two, believe it or not, the Guild used to run things there. No, they don't. Right? Case in point, yeah, what we call the Guild lawn. Now, Guild members have to seek permission to do an activity on Guild lawn. That was never heard of in my time. That was ours. What we want to do there, we do there. Simple, straight, right? But you have presidents after you want to be seemingly look good in the eyes of administration and BS people. You can't have that. That is why the Guild it is where it is now. And I'm sure all the presidents here, I spoke to many of them. I think the only one that we really didn't have the rapport was Delano. And that's because it was not on campus at that point in time. It was actually out sick for that whole time, right? But, I mean, you gotta make sure, right, that you are on top of things when it comes to administration. As it relates to problems in my time, however, I became Guild president around the time where UE was now transforming into the UE that it is today, with all the big elaborate buildings, and there were a lot of construction going all over the place at the point in time. And we inherit this thing called the amenities fee. And that came about simply because it was orchestrated by administration to have this amenities fee. The president at the point in time went to the meeting and did not counteract it at all. So he said nothing about it. So based on that, as long as you don't object to it, you agree to the policy. So it's only then when, as they say, it hit the fan, then the students got riled up, but it was already approved because the president was at the table at the point in time, but did nothing. So that is why you got to make sure that you have the students' interests at heart, and you're going to the meetings with a purpose, not just going to the meetings because, you have a meeting in Jamaica and you got to go to represent students' interests, but you're not carrying a paper with you. Every single meeting you go to as Guild president, you must carry a paper constructed by your council on behalf of the students, by the problems and solutions, and bring that to the table. When the administration now hits you with raise of fees or whatever the case may be, you object to it, and then you tell them, well, we'll come back with a solution to the problem, and you go from there. But you can't just sit down at the meeting and, take in everything and decide, I just hear. No, that can't work. And to be honest with you, the administration don't respect you for that. You have to make sure you got the students' interests at heart. You bring the problems to administration with solutions, and they love you. They respect you, you show them respect, and that's it, right? However, I just want to mention this quick thing as it relates to that amenities fee. In my time, that was one of the biggest challenges that we have had. So what I did is kind of flip the script because it was law. It was law now. We had to pay that fee, but then they want to increase fees. They want to increase hall fees. They want to make people pay for medical insurance. And that medical insurance that you have today, that's a classic. Because in my time, the president before me actually agreed with the administration that every single student pay an additional fee towards the medical fee. And I was not president at the time, but I was the president of the Part-Time Students Association, which at that time make up over 60% of the campus. And when that meeting was being held, they did not tell me where the meeting was being held and what time it was being held and nothing. But I found out. And I was not invited to the meeting, but I went to the meeting. And I sat across from the guild members. It was Sir Hilary Beckles at the time was the president, was the principal, and the Sergeant Corps advisor. And I remember at that meeting, I said nothing until they come to the point, because everything was agreed on, you know. But when I had that point, any other business, I remember sitting down and saying, on a point of order, sir, my name is David Taji Garner, and I represent over 60% of these students, who most of them are working because they're part-time students. And they want these people who have medical insurance from their companies pay an additional fee to the university for medical insurance that they already have. And most of them people at that time didn't even believe that the guild does anything for them. So I said, no, I do not agree with this. I said, however, the solution to it will be this. We have this fee called the amenities fee that we currently pay. And most students at the point in time don't even know why we pay. Here's what you do. That fee that you want for the medical insurance, you get it out of that. The students are already paying for it. So therefore, it will be free to the students. And I'll never forget, Sir Hilary Beckles looked up at the Sergeant Corps advice and said, we got to go back to the drawing board. And that is why today it is free, technically, because it's paid through the amenities fee. But if it was not there at that meeting, that would have been an additional fee that the students will have to pay, right? So you got to be careful of that. And you just got to be mindful of what's going on around you and make sure that you deal with that problem head on. Thanks.
All right, thank you for that, Taji. I really enjoyed that insight into back in the day and some of the challenges that you were having back then. Of course, as you can see, even with the difference in time span, some of the challenges are really similar. So I want to go back down the line now with this question of the relationship with the administration and particularly OSS. If everyone can keep it brief, because we have a few more things to unpack before we wrap up. But again, this has been a very pressing issue for particularly more recent guilds. So I just wanted to get some idea of the relationship that you would have had with the administration. Mr. Paris.
Well, thank you. Speaking about the Office of Student Services, I think it is best that I do not speak about the Office of Student Services. I think that one might arise given my views on the on the Office of Student Services. And
well, I would tell you we may very well benefit from your views, whether they are onto it or not, but so
I have to say that my views are dim. I would describe them as quite dim. And I think Delano would remember that they really began to get aggressive with this foolishness shortly before we arrived on the scene. And that was because, as Mr. Garner pointed out, because Mr. Garner was a few years before myself, there was a significant amount of ground loss in between those years, a significant amount of ground. And to come into the role of president to attempt to, with your guild council, restore a ideology of what a guild is stunning for an administration who had hitherto not received any pushback. And so you came in with all of the other crises around, having to deal with an administration who did not yet understand how one deals with guild representation as it ought to be. And so there was a significant difficulty. I eventually escalated it to the deputy principal and reserved my meetings with him to avoid having to engage with the colleagues at the student services, because I did not think it was an appropriate use of our time, and it was not an effective means of delivering on what the guild had to do. And that dim viewpoint remains to this day. I think that we could benefit from more supportive relations. And I mean supportive in terms of supportive of as I described it when I spoke about what the role of the guild is, of the Ordinance 1 described guild in our statutes and ordinances, because the body is described to be a certain thing. And I think that when persons begin to drift from where your definitional responsibilities are, then we encounter problems. And it is important that we accept that the guild has a particular responsibility and that we be mature enough to treat it like if that is its responsibility really and actually.
All right, thank you very much for that perspective. It wasn't too controversial at all, you know, contrary to what you may think. But Dr. Delano, your relationship with the administration, particularly OSS.
Well, my relationship, I'll start with OSS. Now, around my tenure and Damani's tenure before mine, there was an orientation, there was a shift, and I think Taji mentioned the fact that we had a change in leadership of the Office of Student Services. Those of us who've been around long enough, we know exactly what we mean. And of course, I think the former head of OSS has since passed, and she's now of blessed memory. Yeah. But in terms of the relationship that we had, we were there at the point in time where the OSS was sort of trying to transform the campus into what they saw as, in my mind, which was a more international campus in some ways. So some of the things that had historically been a part of the Cavell campus and the University of West Indies, they tried to stamp out. So for example, hall orientation, or what we refer to as grubbing, that was something that OSS started to frown on. And of course, having gone through the process of orientation and so on myself, they wanted to water it down in terms of, you know, you can't do certain things and you can't do this. And so that was where the relationship started to go downhill. Then we had our events. Now, OSS wanted to have certain rules and restrictions on the events that hitherto had not been the case. Like Damani said, and like Taji said, a lot of ground had been lost. So they would have tried to ban many aspects of Freshers Week, of Freshers Orientation on halls. They then tried to ban several aspects in terms of what we wanted to. We wanted to have a Juve on campus. Fellas tell me we can't have a paint on campus unless we do X, Y, Z. I said, well, listen, I don't care what it costs me. The students want this thing in place. So we found a cost-effective way to have the Juve on campus. So they said that the walls will get painted. So I was willing to go to them with toe-to-toe. So they said, listen, if we have the Juve at the back of the guild, which is where we used to have our Freshers Fest, that the walls are going to get painted up from a Juve, how do we fix that? I said, well, listen, so they said we can't have it unless we could find a way to fix the walls getting painted. So you know what I did? I got a sponsor and we got some money to bring in fence it. So we put fence all around the building so that nobody can touch the walls and no paint can touch the wall. We did that, then they say, but suppose somebody move the fence. I said, well, how the fence go move? And so basically it was a moving goalpost type of thing where eventually it got to the point where they said, listen, you can't do this thing. And I said, my approach was simply this: if I can't have it on campus, I could tell you I can have it off campus without your rules. So we started to have some of our events off campus. And so And eventually they started to come around and they said, well, this ain't making no sense. We have UE branded events happening all over Barbados, in Bridgetown, by Chetwynd Place and so on, down there by Harbour Road. And then, those things got wrong. So they said, listen, what we had to do, we had to have most of our events off campus for a little while until they came to their senses and kind of realized that we ain't playing. If you're telling us we can't do X, Y on campus, I bet you we could go and pay and do it privately. Yeah. So we had to engage with them. My relationship, it sort of got better because I kind of realized that, listen, you have to play the game in terms of certain things that you had to do. You have to have the resolve to have certain things to do, and you really make sure that you try you put forward solutions, and that was always my approach. So I always had a leg to stand on when I go into actual administration. So when we went to administration and they said, so why are you having this event off campus? Like I say, these are the 10 things that I offered to do to address the concerns of the Office of Student Services, and they were not happy with any of them, so we went off campus. Yeah, I had a leg to stand on. So OSS was always a challenge. By the end of by the middle of my tenure, we started to get along a little bit better. I think actually at a point I got a little bit closer. I spent some time getting to know some of the personnel in there, and that helped. Of course, personal relationships always try to move things along, and I think as well, by that time now that we had shown ourselves capable of managing the money in terms of the guild. And once you show yourself capable of managing the money, once you show that you have the student support, like Osaze said, once they realize that the students are with you, then they start to change their tune in terms of how things go. And then we more or less got into a groove where we got a lot of things done. In terms of administration itself, I would always say, listen, you need to be prepared. I never go into a meeting like Taji said without a paper, without something written, something properly done. And so on. I have to say, now that I'm sitting on the other side of the fence, I want to encourage you guys in particular, especially the faculty reps, because I sit in meetings now and I see a lack of advocacy on certain issues. And now, somewhat to that, my colleagues now be asking me if I'm still a guild president or if I'm now faculty, because sometimes I actually say, well, it's unfair to the students. You get me? Because I still have that in me. And sometimes I'm sitting in meetings, I'm waiting for the students to speak up, and they don't say anything, and then I have to interject and say, well, I don't think this is fair. So I'm not going to say anything apart from that. Just make sure that you are advocating as strongly as you can. And that's an important bit. Relationships, again, are important, and respect is important. So no matter how many times me and Prof. Beckers or Prof. Barito almost came to blows in meetings, there was always an element of respect. Yeah, that's always important. So you would disagree, you would state your position. Sometimes Professor Barito would have to say, Mr. President, I hear you. I cannot address it now, I hear you. Your objection is noted, because that's one thing like Taji said. I never leave a meeting without my position being articulated for the minutes. Sometimes I would have to say, and I want it documented in the minutes, that the Guild of Students is against this, so that we have now the opportunity to revisit it later with a proposal or a solution to say we did not agree with it in the beginning. That was always an important bit. Advocacy is important, making sure you recognize that the relationships are there. Do not go into these meetings unprepared. And I think once you're firm, once you're fair, once you put forward solutions, there was a point in time in terms of the machines, the washing machines and so on. When I went up there, they were saying that they couldn't source the machines. We got quotations and talked to them and said, well, listen, this is how much the machine costs. I ain't asking you, I telling you. You understand what I'm saying? I ain't asking you, I telling you. And so in the end, we ended up getting new machines. And so it's important to be prepared and go into the meetings and you advocate as best you can. And I think you'd find that administration respects you. Until now, I walk into admin now as member of staff, and persons still refer to me as the guild president in human resources and other places. Because after all, you develop a reputation as somebody who's firm, fair, and always prepared for meetings. And once you get that reputation, you realize now that when you bring a solution to the table, they listen. And that's an important bit. And I try to bring that over now in my new role, because at the end of the day, students are what matters. So as much as you guys are complaining about the AC, I don't behind them too, because I teach them every day. I come out of class today and I sweat in. And I say, well, this can't work. So I've been advocating just as tirelessly as you, because it's not just affecting students, it's affecting us as well. But there's still that spirit in me that says, if a student is being disadvantaged in any way, even though I'm on the other side now in some respects, I'm not going to sit down and just go ahead with it because that's what the colleagues would want. And so those are the things I would say to that.
Thank you very much. There was a lot in that, Delano, but I was going to say that the relationship with the administration is important if you want to get anything done. But Osazi, apparently, you can go off campus and do whatever you want off campus, even if you don't have a good relationship.
Don't say I say so, no.
So thank you for that, Delano.
Hey, that's fun.
It is 3:04 a.m. in London, and Kai Bridgewater has to leave us after this question. Kai, it was a pleasure having you. I just want to give a little outro before you come in here. Kai was my first Guild president, and so Kai will forever have a special place in my heart for that year that of his presidency. I came in 2017. He was the president, and it was one of the best years that I've had on campus with the Guild. I mean, we did so many things, from the march, the protests, to all the cruises we had, the party. It was just phenomenal. So Kai, thank you for making my initial experience into UWI-Kayville one of the best that I could ask for, really and truly. So Kai, as we wrap up, I wanted to tie two things. Yes, I want you to speak about your relationship with the administration and particularly OSS, but this is a legacy discussion. And so I want you to speak a little bit about what you think. Yes, I'm throwing you under the bus, don't cover your mouth. What you think your legacy is, not what people have said to you or not what you have heard in the grapevines, but what you think is the legacy that you have left as a Guild president at the Kayville campus.
Oh, big question, boy. Okay, so while I think about the legacy, let me address the first part, which is my relationship with administration. And I think it really, well, firstly, actually, thank you very much for those kind words. I really appreciate it, because, you know, the Guild really matters a lot to me, and making that student experience a good one was really my priority. So I'm very happy to hear that that's how you felt about it. In terms of my relationship with administration, as I said, it ties back in with, you know, standing on the shoulders of people before you, right? My relationship with administration and OSS in particular wasn't as rocky because I had a blueprint I was working with. Delano spoke about, you know, the fencing for the juves and all of these things to allow the events to happen. We followed that template. Olvin followed it. We came and we followed the same template. We said, OSS, it's been done before. We will just repeat the same template. And so I don't see why there should be an issue. And that made it a lot easier for us. But then also it ties in with the relationships. I fostered from I was a hall chairman, and you have to work a lot with OSS. I'm sure all hall chairpersons can say so. And through that experience, I ended up having a good relationship, you know, fighting back and forth, but with respect, and ended up fostering a relationship with the people in OSS. And so I remember there were times when my councils, when I was president, wanted approval and say they may miss the deadline. You know, there were very arbitrary deadlines for things, but they might have missed a deadline for OSS to give like a proposal. And they came to me and said, Kai, OSS says my event can't happen. I said, no, the event is going to happen. I walked down there myself. I would speak to the lady who was the head of OSS at the time, and I said, no, this has to happen. And why it has to happen? Because this event is important to the students. And lo and behold, all of a sudden, the proposal didn't have to go in at that time, and the proposal was accepted at the moment I spoke to her. So it was really a lot about relationships and fostering a relationship with OSS. And I think that same tilt can be applied or extrapolated to administration. As you know, we had marches, we had protests. I was a very fervent and fearless advocate, but I was always prepared. I always had my paper. I was always very solution oriented as well. And the administration knew the students were behind me. So no matter how much we tussle and we protest or we complain or we say, you know, admin work with us on these things, they respected it. And I think that was a lesson for me just in life, that people don't want a yes man. They don't respect the yes man. What they respect is somebody who is a fervent and strong supporter of the interests of the people they represent. That's what they respect. And so funny enough, no matter after all of the back and forth with me and Barto, she actually wrote my recommendation to go to Oxford. So that just goes to show the depth of the relationship and the respect, despite being on opposite sides of the fences. Because at the end of the day, once you make it clear to administration that the students are the priority of the university, they accept that. No one's going to say the students are not supposed to be the priority. So you just have to come, you explain the issues, you provide the solutions, and you come with a very research and thoughtful position, and they will respect that. I think that was super important. But please, I just keep wanting to stress that when you say you see the benefits of standing on the shoulders of the people that came before you, but you can also see the negatives of dropping the ball, right? You can see the difference between from Taji's period as president to Damani and how things change just because people were dropping the ball in that period. It makes a tremendous difference. And I just want to encourage all guild councils, Mr. President, just do not drop that ball. Take the bar higher. Always take the bar higher, because it's in the benefit of the long-term benefit of the students, not just in your period, but the periods to come. With that being said, I want to just kind of transition and just say to you, I know you said, that you believe that in 1 year you can build back the reputation of the guild. I'm telling you, you can do it, bro. Don't you doubt yourself for a minute. In my tenure, I know there were some issues in the period, the tenure before with, and Thatcher briefly mentioned it, some national versus non-national debates and tensions, and that crippled the guild prior to me. And actually the guild stopped functioning really after like March or like February or something, like just completely stopped functioning. And like there was a lot of lack of trust, there was a lot of tension, divide. And in 1 year, we were able to sow the seeds for the rehabilitation of the guild and then watch them blossom by the end of the year. That was never an issue. That by the end of the year, that tension wasn't even an issue anymore. I never even heard it as an issue. So it just goes to show that 1 year can change a lot. 1 year can do a lot of good, 1 year can do a lot of bad. And it's up to you to make that difference. But I trust you to make sure it's a good one. So all the best with that, my friend. And to answer the last question about the legacy, I think one of my big legacy achievements was definitely the creation of a new constitution. When I was president, the constitution hadn't been updated since 1998. And many guilds had came to the fore and tried to change the constitution, but unfortunately it would not be passed in time before they handed over. And then FNGPC or University Council never ratified it, all these things. And that was a big, big, big achievement for us, because there were so many things that we introduced into the new constitution that didn't exist before. And I think that they really helped with the proper functioning of the guild. We created new officers, events officers, we created new positions, we caused certain things to be elected versus appointed. And it was just a really, really heartwarming legacy project for me. But I think the most important thing for me was leaving a spirit of advocacy, representation, and empathy and leadership. I think that after leaving my tenure, I think that there was at least, I was able to carry the ball that much further and to show persons that the students, the student experience can be it all. It can be social, it can have educational and thought-provoking discussions. It can also be one where you can see the impact the guild provides for you, that added benefit. I think that legacy is something that will allow the guild to just continue to go forward and forward. And I think that was something that I really strived to instill in my time as president, and I was able to achieve it, in my opinion. So I think that was a really, really good legacy on that part. With that being said, thank you so much, guys.
Before you go, I just want to tell a little story, because everybody see you here and you're smiling and you sound very diplomatic and intellectual. But I just want to share this story. I don't know if you remember this, but when I came first in 2017, obviously he was the guild president, and the guild president's residence at the time was on Sherlock Hall. And so he was staying there, and that's where I was staying. So I came, and during the daytime, oh, this is the guild president. Hi, you shake hands and you meet the guy. But at the time, we were also grubbing, and then it came back to mind when Delano mentioned grubbing. And so in the night, we grubbing, we're on the field and so on. Now, this is my first day. I just met the guild president, Kai Bridgewater, and I was so, fascinated. And we get on the field. Now, for those of you who don't know, when you're grubbing, your head is down, so you can't see anything. You're just hearing everything. And I'm on the grub line, and there's a bag of noise, man, and somebody's in my ear with some instructions. Now, freshman, and I'm like, who is this person? And the person, because my head is down, so the person bent down, and they're in my face now, so I can see them, and they're screaming at me. I said, this can't be the same Kai Bridgewater that I met a couple hours ago in the daytime, who was so nice and polite. And so I'm just like, this is crazy. I was just like, all right, I see the game now. I see what you guys are doing now. But Kai, thank you once again. You're a phenomenal person, and do enjoy, this aspect of your life that you're in. I know you're working in London now, and it's very late, so thank you for staying up with us, and all the best, my brother.
Thank you very much, and big up everybody. Big up the Jamaicans in the building. Big up the Warlights. I know, and big up the guild. Big up the guild.
Big up the Jamaicans.
All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Cool.
Respect.
Yeah, Bridget.
So, Thatcher, we're going to wrap up in a few, but Kai also mentioned some things that I also want to touch before we wrap up. So I know you have no fewer words than the others to say when it comes to the relationship with administration and OSS. So I'm going to give you a chance to speak to your reality in terms of that, and then we'll press forward. So Thatcher, you could go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Of course, I had admin wrapper on my little finger. No, that's not true. Do not go and tell them that. Do not go and tell them that. Stephanie, do not put out this recording on my head YouTube live. No. I had to let administration know that I am a part of the team. I am not on the other side. No. So I wasn't the guild president who thought that I was on the other side and administration was on the other side. No, there was no right, there was no left. We were on the same team. It was for me to have that command, the consistent communication, and those strategic recommendations and plans to take to administration when it comes to student advocacy. So you would have students who might say, oh, she's on admin side. Yes, because I am a part of administration, so hence I am a part of the team. I don't expect administration to fight with me, the Guild of Students, and I don't expect the Guild of Students to fight with administration. Ravi, of course, we had our fair share with the processes of the Office of Student Services, but I think once I was able to, personally talk to the director, we kind of developed that personal relationship as well. And as Dr. D'Souza said, personal relationships, they're very, very important. And as for the principal too, it was wonderful working with her. I mean, she listened. And what I really like about the administration that I worked on, yes, we had challenges. And sometimes they'll say, Thatcher, but we can't do this for the student. Miss Loughton, but you have to give us time and so forth. I understand all of that. But it was that personal relationship. There was that moment where I could just take up my phone and I could WhatsApp the deputy principal. I could WhatsApp the principal outside of these meetings, to say, this is what is happening. I will be coming with this in the meeting. So prepare for this. I think, and I can't be boastful, but from the Guild of Students 2019, 2021, we were able to have build that consistent standard. And I think that is what we would have left as our legacy, that standard. And so when you see me speak out with the current guild, that the guild that came after me, it was the rigors and the stress to get that standard up where we wanted the student trust, and to just see it went from a 10 to a 0, it was very overwhelming. And people would say, but stay out of the guild. No, I cannot, because And I understand the processes of the Guild. I'm very committed, and I still have that commitment and purpose, and that is why I'm here now on this panel, in this panel discussion, because we're expecting the hurricane tomorrow in Florida. I'm currently speaking from Florida, and we're expecting the hurricane tomorrow. And while I was preparing for the hurricane, I had to jump into the meeting, of course, and I knew that, listen, if it takes up until 1 o'clock, I will stay into this meeting and just share my views on the Guild of Students, because I'm very committed. I love the Guild of Students. I love the advancement and development of the students. I am committed and will serve the Guild of Students anytime. It doesn't matter how busy I am, I will always fit the Guild of Students in my schedule. I just want to say to Osazi, of course you can rebuild in a year. It takes consistency, it takes focus. You have to have that command and good communication and be strategic. And whatever strategic policies and plans that you're making, make sure they're futuristic. Futuristic, so it will serve other guilds of students. So make sure you keep that standard. You can level back up and show them that you can do it. So I wish you nothing but luck. Going forward, remember, administration is not on the other side and you're on the other side. You are the Guild president and you are a part of administration.
Okay, thank you for that, Thatcher. I promise you we're going to wrap up very shortly, but I cannot leave the panel discussion without this particular topic. Now, I hope I'm not opening a bag that we can't close within the next half an hour or so. But the issue of controversy, and it wasn't dealt with heavily, but certainly there were itty bitty pieces of it coming through the different presentations. But I wanted to speak about the controversy that you would have had on the various guilds. A lot of people like to throw around this big word xenophobia. Of course, we understand that we are in the Barbadian context, but we are the most diverse campus of all the landed campuses of the UWI. And so persons from disparate lands come here to study, and so people like to throw around xenophobia. And there may be other controversies, but I would allow each president to speak to some of the controversies that they had that were unique to them and their guilds. We're going to start with Taji. We'll start right back up and work our way forward. Taj?
Controversy. As it relates to that, I wouldn't really say controversy in my time, but there was a lot of kind of internal struggles. You will find guild members that have aspirations to become guild president. You know, they try to form a little cliques and that sort of stuff. You got to nip that in the bud. I mean, I'm going to tell the current president this. All the presidents before him know this. The president's voice is the voice of the guild. I think it was Kai that said that he went to student services and he got that matter solved and won. That is because the administration, believe it or not, only listened to the voice of the guild president to make a decision. The VP, if the president sends the VP, fine, but no other guild member, administration is not going to listen to them. They're always going to ask this: what is the position of the guild president? So he must make sure that he knows that he's the voice of the guild. Controversy. I can't really talk too much on that, to be honest with you, because I mean, it will bring a lot of internal struggles of the guild. Is always between some person that wants to sit where you are sitting, and they try to bring up things against you so that you look small in the eyes of the students or administration and all that sort of stuff. But you got to nip that stuff in the bud. Always remember this too. The students must know everything. It is nothing that the guild does that the students cannot know about, right? That is one of the controversial things that they had in my time, even before I was guild president. I remember a case where the president at the time, and this might be surprising for a number of you, decided, the guild council actually decided that, that they're going to pay a stipend, a monthly stipend to guild councilors. That was before I was president. And it was passed because myself and 2 other councilors decided that, no, we don't agree with this. But because the majority rules, it was passed. And that was one of the reasons I decided to, as a matter of fact, because of this, I decided to run for guild president. After that meeting, when that was passed, I then told the president this, well, you know, we have to tell the students about this. And they said to me, the students don't have to know everything. And I told the president at the time, I fundamentally disagree with you. The students must know everything as it relates to the guild. That way you have transparency. And it is that point in time I decided to run for guild president, right? So you're gonna find a lot of internal struggles and so on, but it's how you deal with it. Always have the students up here, the students' interests up here. Always respect each and every council. The council members would come at you, but you show them respect, just the same way you show administration respect. Let them have their voice, hear what they're saying, and you give them your point of view. At the end of the day, you make the decisions that would affect thousands of students. So just keep that in mind.
All right, thank you for that, Taji. Mr. Paris, can you speak a little to some of the controversies and conflicts that you had on your guild?
Well, certainly, I think I will. I can be very brief on this one. The main controversy is, I think, well established as the tuition fee issue. That was the major controversy for my guild, and I think what I will do is briefly speak about the experience of the guild at that time, because I think that for persons who might have been out of that context, it might be difficult to appreciate what that particular controversy was like for the guild when it first began. And particularly because we were dealing with internal budgetary issues, we could not have anticipated the announcement by the ministry. So the announcement came in a budget literally overnight, out of the blue. It was like being struck by lightning out of the blue. And the guild suddenly had to begin to shield itself. And we must be grateful, and this is why relationships are important, as was mentioned previously. We must be grateful to a lot of the cover that was provided to us by administration, because to articulate a counterposition to a government and to do so essentially in response to a budget speech requires a substantial amount of preparation and expert advice in order to well articulate what your position is going to be. And in order to justify why we were saying that it was unfair that those fees were removed, we had to begin to have a conversation about what, first of all, the length of time between the announcement and the intended implementation, the likely impacts on students, what student surveys are saying in terms of those impacts, what can you expect, what are some possible alternatives in the governmental budget that can be considered for cuts to avoid entrenching so deep an injury on the student body. There was a deep conversation that had to be had. And that conversation for my council largely took place in the media. For 2 consecutive years, and then into Delano's period and beyond, we had to prepare ourselves for public relations on a national and regional stage. There were often press statements and so on where we had to jointly sit to present press statements to the regional media. And that really required a profiling and an aggression that to this day, I am very grateful to my council for. I remember councillors facing, and I think Delano, you remember this as well, councillors facing threats at work because of the implications that their activities in the guild was having on national policy. And so people were threatening them in their workplaces and suggesting that their appearance next to these people advocating for policy change in the government would be to their detriment. And so that really was quite the controversy. And I think the other big controversy was more internal. Our hard decision to cancel Carnival. That was the controversy to end all controversies. Delano knows that I won re-election with 25 votes because of that controversy. It was a beatdown to represent to the public that we have to take bitter medicine now in order to survive later and to have a future at all, and to reconstruct and refinance the realities of the guild so that there can continue to be staff, so that there can continue to be the budgets that we need to undertake our activities, while still ensuring that there will be a future for the guild after you've left. That was quite the controversy that happened at the same time. And though we were able to bring back Carnival in my last year, we had to do a far reduced activity, and it was so difficult. Delano would remember this as well. It was so difficult to convince OFS only after a year break that we were going to bring that back at the level that we wanted to have our student relationships. So I think that those were really the big controversial issues in my tenure.
All right, thank you for that. Certainly, I can see how Carnival would be a major controversy for sure. Delano, you want to speak to some of the controversies and conflicts that you would have had on your guild?
Sure. In terms of the controversies, I was very fortunate in terms of the disposition of my guild of students. And I think having been on the guild and been around the guild for so many years before, I was fortunate to recognize how to approach this thing. So when I came in, I also was a more mature student. Like I said, I was pursuing my doctorate, and I went in there. I was also working full-time at the time as well. And so it really wasn't no time for no grin and skin thing when it comes to the business of the council. I was very firm in that approach. Now, I have this sort of personality that I get along with persons, I'm very affable when it comes to that. So it was easy for me to form a council. It was easy for me to form bonds with my council. And I spent a lot of time at the beginning building the relationship with my council itself. So in terms of our guild retreat, in terms of how that was executed, in terms of the events that we had, the bonding activities and all of that, that was important for me because I had realized before that was the downfall of a lot of the guilds that I'd seen where it fell apart internally. So I worked hard to make sure that I was there. There was an element of mutual respect. You could come to me with anything. And so we had that. But then, of course, there were periods of time where I had to say, like Margaret Thatcher, and I had to say, listen, I'm the prime minister and it will be done how I say it will be done. Because at the end of the day, you are the president and you're responsible for the guild of students. But if you have that sort of collegiality in there and that respect, it makes it easier. So I didn't really have that much internal strife. I think I had one internal strife where we ended up having to remove a particular councillor. And you'd be surprised to know now that councillor and I are like best friends today. And despite that, because I think with time, the wisdom came to realize that you were wrong. Yeah, and I think when you stand in good position and you move forward in that particular way, I think in hindsight, persons kind of realize, and you had the backing of the students. So that was an important bit. In terms of the controversy, like I said, we had to rebuild the social aspects of campus after the austerity package that me and the man had to conjure up in the years before. So we had to build back that. So it was difficult in terms of getting the students on board, but we did manage to achieve that. One of the controversies that I think that we had, did we have that much controversy? I don't really think we did. We were in a position that we got a lot of everything done. We had a good relationship with campus administration. We were able to, I think the most controversial bit was the scaling back out Carnival. And you would imagine, because I don't think some of you guys know, Carnival back here on the Cable campus was a massive event, you know. Carnival, and it used to have thousands, 5,000, 6,000 people, 3 and 4 truck on the road, you know. And that's when it was before we had to cancel Carnival. So the little one truck and thing y'all had now, persons used to
They
come.
don't know any of that.
So
Listen, don't come and try at this. Don't come and try at this with one truck. You know,
no, I'm just saying, back in them times, Carnival used to rival crop over. We had crop over bands and thing wanted to participate in UWI Carnival. You know, it was a thing. You know, persons used to fly in for UWI Carnival. It was that big. Yeah. And so to try to get back there, it was a bit of a controversy in terms of getting administration to be back, to get back on board with that. So I wouldn't say we had big controversies. It's just a matter of, you know, sort of gliding through. I had a good year. I'll be very honest with you. We had a really good year as Guild and I guess, and that's partly why, despite so many students and so much of my Guild Council asking me to take a second year, I said, "Boy, no, boy, let me leave on a high." So I didn't run for a second year as Guild. So I admire Damani and Thatcher who did. But everybody was saying, "Man, no, you had to run again." I said, "Nope, out of there." I've raised the bar, and you guys can pass it on.
Yeah, retire at the height of your popularity and your success, man. It's a good way to go. Thatcher, certainly I want to hear from you as it relates to controversies and conflicts. I know them all too well, but I will leave it up to you to say what you
Yes, Dr. D'Souza. Yes, I had to cement the legacy, so I had to run a second time. I mean, if this is going to be an honest conversation, you know, I think I would want to start with the challenges I had internally, and that is why I would normally put the challenges that I had internally in my president's report for our annual general meeting report, because I must mention conflict and tension. I must mention disengagement. I must mention the lack of trust and confidential issues. I must mention the personality conflict that that I had on my team. But I feel like students don't understand how difficult it is to be the CEO of the Guild of Students, you know, to be the Guild president, because alongside representation, you have to keep the team connected, keep the team together, keep the team working and focused, and it, in that difficult time, I'm a mature student as well. I'm a mother. At that time, being on the Guild of Students, I'm battling a health complication, but I walk into that guild and I ensure that my team stayed connected. And so even if your personality did not match with my personality as guild president, you must respect the office of the guild president. You must respect your vice president. You must respect each other. And I would normally say, you know, we don't come on this team being friends. No, we come with a purpose to work as teammates and serve the students. We have one goal. It is the Guild of Students. It's not the president's guild. And that is why whatever I posted, I normally say the Guild of Students, because it's a collective effort. So I must mention those challenges. I mean, Osazu, you're going to face it as well. I'm almost sure all the guild presidents would have faced it as well, but I still can't complain, because I think I did had 2 good years despite the challenges. Then I have my computer in front of me, and each time I pull up this article, it just hurt my heart, you know? Bad blood. Bad blood. There seems to be a storm brewing in the Guild of Students at the University of the West Indies campus between the Barbadian students and the non-nationals. Nonsense. Nonsense. I always beat this down, because not with the pride foster in our island associations, clubs, and societies. No, not with the Clearville campus being the diverse of all the campuses. No, we don't deal with xenophobia across here. I don't know where they got that from, but I think that it was because you know, the Bahamian president, the Bahamian Students Association president had moved a no confidence motion against the vice president at the time, and the votes went against her. I was standing on the platform and I was like, Lord, please let the students give her another chance. Please let the students give her another chance. It didn't go in my favor, and I didn't have the control of the students, you know, the students' voices. I mean, the students vote us in and they can vote us out. I don't think most of our guild counselors understand this, you know. And so that was the controversy at the time with xenophobia. At that time, I decided to take the Guild of Students outside of Barbados tabloid. So, of course, if If it has to do with Bacchanal and you're going and Loop News and Barbados Today and Nation News is going to contact me, please don't contact this guild president, because this guild president and my two PROs, Osazi and Sydney, will not join in these Bacchanal. No, if you're coming to me for positive news to let the Barbadian population understand what the Guild of Students is doing for the students, then you can come to me. I had no dealings at all with the media in Barbados. They would normally say when contacted the president of the Guild of Students, Miss Thatcher Loughton, and they often spell Miss Thatcher wrong, she was not commenting in the media at this time, no. So after all the controversy and the media took it out wrong, and when I found out that it was actually a Jamaican journalist who wrote the Bad Blood piece that was so poorly written, you know, without facts and somebody who didn't understand how we live on the K-Ville campus, you know, I decided, you know what? If it's not positivity, it's not going into the media, and the media cannot contact me, and they know that they must not contact me. So that was one of the biggest controversy, that xenophobia issue.
Right, I remember that all too well, but I think we handled it well, and it eventually came around, and we had two very good tenures. Osazi, I want to bring in here, of course, to round up this aspect of the discussion. I accidentally left you out of the discussion as it relates to the relationship with the administration and OSF. So I'm going to allow you to speak to that, and then, of course, they always say it's not good to air your dirty laundry. Of course, you're in the hot seat now, so I don't know if you want to speak to controversies and conflict in an open public forum, but I will leave that to you.
I transparent. But to start with the relationship with admin, I think I have a good relationship with most of them. But let me like go back. So in year one, when I wasn't doing anything, no positions already. My friend Ashley, who was the constant chair on Tasha's Guild, she was like, you should make friends with Dale. That's a good person to be friends with. And so I was like, okay. And so I reached out to Miss Lynch and we talk about things and just in general. And I think to now, like that's a good relationship to have with Miss Lynch and OSS as the Director of Student Services. And another memory, back when I was PRO of the Guild. The PRO doesn't usually sit on many committees, but there was this time when the SOSI rep wasn't able to go to the meeting. And so like right before the meeting, he was like, hey, you could go and sit in this meeting. I was like, yeah, you have anything to say? He said, no. He said nothing. You don't have to say anything. You just have to go in the meeting. So I go in the meeting and I sit down, and 3 hours down in the meeting, they say something about student matters. And I'm here like, the man tell me it have nothing to report. And I was like, no, that was mad. And so like since then, I mean, I like after that, as I said, the PR doesn't really have to sit on many committees, but like I take that with me. Like going forward, I in any meetings, I make sure I have my things ready, papers, everything, solutions coming to them. And so that's for the meetings itself. With respect to the relationship, as I say, I have a decent relationship with OSS, but you know they always have their list of requirements. I think now though, compared to at the start, with Freshers Week, we tried to do everything they wanted, but as I said, and I told also the deputy principal, everything we try to do everything right straight up to the Saturday before Freshers Week. After that, we had to do what we had to do, and so the week up to now, Freshers Week end up with. But you heard them talking about how good it was and how good the engagement is in university and how they're proud of the Guild. But they never gave us approval for that. We did it because we had to do it. And so the current Guild Week, it still have outstanding requirements, but we get what they call conditional approval now because they say that in good faith that we meet the rest of requirements. So I guess, you know, they understand that they're not going to stop the events because we're going to make sure it happens. So now they come up with a new conditional approval. But as I'm not sure if it was Dr. D'Souza who said it, we had to take things off campus because when we started, the first thing there was like, you know, still our COVID, the maximum capacity is like 300 for this. I was like, well, okay, we go off campus. We did most things off campus except for the Bear Lime. And then the Bear Lime, we had an issue. And the Bear Lime was a sponsored event. Obviously, we call it the event bus. We literally just tell the students, hey, yo, we're walking down to GT. And over 300 students walked down from UE to GT. And in the meeting after, I was like, there's no way you could tell me that me making the students walk down the hill to go to a bar where anybody can enter is safer than us having something in the union building. And so now, you know, they're willing to work with us on capacity and security, that kind of thing. And so that is OSS and security. With respect to the bursary, as I say, we kind of come into financial trouble. So at the start, it was just like they telling us, you know, we locking out the money, all they had to basically come to us with. And so it was like, that would make no sense because the guild is run itself. The guild is in the charter of the university, as Damani rightfully pointed out. And we have the authority to decide how we spend our money. And so, you know, coming down into Freshers, because I say we had a issue, so to speak.
That is my wedding.
You know, in the
logo that we
trying to solve the issue on their part, they kind of had to meet us where we were to come to some kind of understanding. And you know, I remember in Freshers Week, while the activities going, before that, I am on a call with the deputy principal, the registrar, on the base, a WhatsApp call with them trying to say, you know, you had to do this. And I'm saying, we have an event to pull off. If we do this, it just wouldn't work. And that the students not going to say, well, you know, the guild fighting with the bursary, so the event didn't happen. They're going to say the guild wasn't doing what they had to do. And they're mad because you're not making me feel on your part. And so, you know, we push the event, we push the week. And after that, they kind of change in their approach. We still have outstanding invoices, but you know, they have more of a willingness to work and change the process. But as I say, we still at the start of the tenure, things could still change. But yeah, that's it with respect to relationships with that. I have a pretty good relationship with the deputy principal. I think he kind of acts as a mediator between like me and the bursar sometimes, or me and the registrar, where he trying to stay in between to find a middle ground kind of vibe, but you know, work in progress. We still in September. With respect to controversies, I don't think I have any yet. Maybe if this was tomorrow, I might have one, but we'll see. We'll see how the AGM goes tomorrow. Well, general meeting, not AGM.
Yes, we have a general meeting to look forward to tomorrow. So I think you should, like you did with all of those comments about controversy. So we look forward to that. We are going to wrap up now. We are 15 minutes out from our scheduled closing time. And so, of course, I wanted to end just as I invited Kai to do. I wanted to speak, each of you, a little bit about legacy, speak to your legacy. But I wanted to frame it in such a way that you sort of, in a very short space of time, paint for us a picture of how you met the guild. I know we have had lots of discussions, so I guess it would be conclusive in nature, but how you met the guild and how you left the guild. So that you're not just speaking about your legacy at the end, but you can sort of paint for us a picture through whether it was 1 year or 2 years, how you met the guild, and then how you left the guild, and then that will tell us certainly what your legacy was. And so we'll start again with Taji, and then we'll make our way down. Taj.
Hi, yes. Well, how I met the guild, I was currently on the guild before becoming the guild president. But when I saw what was really going on in terms of the needs of the students, to me was not being fulfilled. So I made sure that in my time that the students, one, they get that free medical insurance. At the point in time when I sat on the guild, we had permission to start the shuttle service. When I was guild president, I got an additional 2 buses for the students as well. And at that point in time, there were no bus shelters at all. So we lobbied to get bus shelters built as well. Unfortunately, the building of the bus shelters were in the guild after me, but for me, in terms of the legacy, first and foremost, that medical insurance for thousands of students, that was the key to my legacy on the Guild, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, keep it short.
All right, thank you for that. Certainly part of your legacy, that medical insurance. Mr. Paris, again, you can nicely paint a very brief picture for us, the condition that you met the Guild in, and then the condition that you left the Guild in, and in that we will gather what your legacy was. And then you can also tell us what you think your legacy was.
Well, thank you. When I think of my legacy on the Guild, I think about the silly campaign video that I created when I was running for president of the Guild. That video was peak meme. It was a use of the meme. Ain't nobody got time for that, artfully, and I had to thank my artistic director for that, for putting that together. And I came to address what felt like a degradation, as the campaign video spoke to. We had shuttles that were and remain a major issue for students, persons not being able to have faith in the Guild's management of their finances. And I really came to address that crisis of confidence. I wanted to restore a level of responsibility and really a perspective of seriousness when it came to the Guild of Students. And I think that the way that we handled ourselves, even in the greatest of crises, demonstrated that we were prepared for those moments, and that we were able to meet them and eventually emerge victorious in almost all of the circumstances. And whether it be from something as small as being able to articulate the way that the ICGC works, that was a small process victory for us, but it was real and tangible. And I think that in many ways, the successes that came after, in terms of us being able to finally get that constitutional matter sorted and finally begin to establish those structures that ensure that we are able to function, is really, it really began with how we approached myself and then Dr. D'Souza. Delano, we really changed the culture so that it remains as serious as it is now. And we are very, very happy that is generally what describes the Guild today, versus what was really a situation where you had a lot of persons playing the fool in the Guild positions previous. And it really was inspiring to see persons like Thatcher and Kai and all these people take roles in the Guild Council and keep it on. That is something that I am proudest to see. And
all right, thank you very much. That you're very satisfied with your opinion, with your council. Legacy, certainly how you met the Guild and how you left the Guild.
Well, in terms of legacy, how did I mean? Like I said, I was at Damani, and we recognize how it came. And I want to also say thanks to Damani in some respects, because when Damani took over, the period, maybe a couple of years before that, the Guild, Damani sort of brought this sort of inclusiveness to the Guild with respect to the persons that would be on the Guild of Students, for example. Before that, and I don't want to speak ill of anybody, it was sort of associated with sort of tomfoolery and a sort of ineptness in terms of the management of the Guild of Students for a couple of years. And because of that, it sort of alienated. The Guild was almost like a party Guild vibes. So the persons who partied and did the sort of activities, they would be a part of the Guild, or they would fraternize with the Guild. But other persons who are more serious in nature, more academic minded and so on, would not necessarily participating in terms of Guild activities. When Damani took over, That's one thing I thought he brought to it. That's just his personality in general. But you start to saw a lot more sci-tech persons getting involved, a lot more persons in humanities and so on getting involved in terms of student activities, as opposed to 10. He also brought a diversity in terms of the range of activities that we put on as well. So, for example, we would have brought back the Caribbean regions lecture series and those sort of things. Oh, hold some events as a part of, having a good mix of it. But how I saw the Gill when I took over from Damani, when Damani decided that he was going to throw in the towel to bigger, better things, we still we hadn't completed the process of bringing back this sort of trust to the Guild of Students. We had some controversy financial-wise in there. No fault of our own, Damani, as you know how hard we try to keep things in place, but individuals would be who individuals are, and especially when you're seeking personal enrichment, that tends to in your mind or in their mind overshadow the importance of the Guild of Students. So I had to then go back and try to bring that back in terms of bringing back the trust in the Guild of Students. I had to bring back the social activities on campus, having gone through a period where we literally couldn't afford to do much in terms of the activities. I also wanted to continue the welfare initiative I had started, but couldn't go forward again because of finances. So I would have put forward the Guild Scholarships Initiative. I think Patrick would have expanded, and Kai and so on would have expanded it. So that was a big part. When we started at administration, we were wondering why are we trying to spend so much money on starting Guild scholarships and so on. But I expressed to them how important it was, and not just to give out the money, but to have a ceremony honoring the recipients and that sort of thing, and making it something public, something to aspire to, something that's being, service and all that sort of thing. Another important bit, the forefront in terms of what we did. So, for example, one of the things that and I'm proud of this, we started back the awards for the clubs and societies. I think it had stopped. We started that back. So we have best club, best faculty. We started to honor best guild counselor, back award ceremony to show and to create that where the island associations and clubs had something to work towards. We also wanted to increase their subvention to make sure they had the money to function to do what they wanted to do. And we did all those things. I think in terms of the legacy that I have, I think I would say that we brought back a level of professionalism and respect. I think both Mani and I, a level of professionalism and respect to the operation, the Guild of Students, not just within the students, not just with the student body itself, but also with the administration of the university and external parties as well. There was a point in time when sponsors didn't even want to hear the Guild of Students, The reputation of the Guild of Students was so bad that when you send letters to sponsors, them fellas just watch them and soup the teeth and throw on one side. Yeah? So you had to build that back now so as to be able to bring back corporate Barbados into the campus. And so we were able to do so. And then I think the other thing that we were able to do is in terms of the repairs and the infrastructure. I remember it was a big thing, when we got the air condition restored to Guild of Students. I don't know if you persons now every cool and dandy in there that those air conditioning they cost us $100,000 now. And administration did not want us to, because that's a central system where the vents are now on the roof. We had to take down the whole roof for the Guild of Students to run those pipes and everything in there, And that was a big thing that we did. So you see, when that AC was first turned on, the students on this campus were so happy to have air conditioning back in the Guild of Students. We also embarked in terms of asset. I still see some of the benches in the Guild council room. There's a couch in there that we bought. We spent some money in terms of the couch in there. We spent some money in terms of the furniture in there. That was an important bit. We also worked with administration to get the concessionaires at the back of the Guild to increase the student experience as well. Because before that, it was quite difficult in terms of getting persons to come and stay. Because persons would come, but they wouldn't stay. After 2, they pull out, so getting the concessionaires in the back there. And many of you don't even remember that. But there was a big refurbishment of the Guild of Students, and those at the back of the Guild of Students there, the 2 of them on either side. Those were only done, I think, 2015, the money. And that was a big thing. That students itself that we had as well. So there were, and then when we as past for Sherlock Hall, you see me, you can't let these things go to waste. So we had the new washing machines and the facelift of Sherlock Hall and Frank Warren Hall. So I think it was a big part of the legacy that I left in terms of creating that environment, both in terms of the Guild of Students and the halls of residence, and even in the classrooms in terms of getting a lot of the upgrades and so on done. And then I think most importantly, I would say the reputation of the Gilded students. I felt like I left it in a better place, and I'm proud to see since then, except maybe the last glitch that I've seen over the last year or so, the presidents who have came after me, Alvin Holas, who came directly after me, then Kai Bridgewater and Thatcher, and so persons who have came and they've brought this sort of professionalism to the Gilded students, something that is required. This is not a Marby Shop thing, and that's something that you need to realize. This is where you come in to do a job, and even though you might not be paid directly, you have to look at it as a job. And so I'm glad that we were able to bring back that sort of professionalism. I'm glad to see it continue. And I hope, and like they said, you can do it, brother. It's not hard. It's hard. I shouldn't say it's not hard, but it's due to get the Gilded students back up, because we've all done it. We've all come from a plenty of money feel it too. A lot of us have come from a period of time where the Guild was looked at in a manner that is less than what it should be. And to get us back up, then we always have to keep working at it. I believe in this Gilded students, and I believe in the institution. And so I don't hesitate when anybody asks me to do anything for the Gilded students. This Gilded students made me. And if it wasn't for the Gilded students, I would definitely not be here on campus today. Even when I applied for the scholarship to do my PD, all the persons said, you were Guild president, and keep you around this place. When I applied to be a lecturer, here at UWI, in my interview, one of the things they talk about in the interview, my tenure as Guild president. Yeah? Once you work hard, there's always going to be a reward. Not necessarily now, but it develops you and it molds you, and in terms of what you can bring for your own personal.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Dr. D'Souza, an exceptional president indeed. Thatcher?
Yes, how do I go after Dr. D'Souza? I mean, I must say thank you, Damani and Dr. D'Souza, for, leaving that legacy and that standard and professionalism. Have so much challenges after, when I came into presidency, because I came in after Christiana Tong and Christiana Tong came in after Kai. I mean, apart from the little, financial challenges, we managed to clear that. I don't want to sit here and talk about, welfare, what I did for welfare. I think that's already written on the hearts of the student book. But there's a quote from Maya Angelou that I want to share with you, and it says, "I've learned that people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." And there's another quote from Shannon Alder that says, "Carve your name on art, not tombstones. A legacy is etched into the minds of others and the stories they share about you." So I'm taking a different approach as it is where legacy is concerned. And I think the legacy that the Guild of Students 2019, 2021 left is that deep and powerful way of connecting with the students and corporate Barbados in every way possible. We were the Guild of Students who was able to just send a sponsorship, do a sponsorship letter, send it out to corporate Barbados, and we have Coca-Cola coming on board. Ravi, I can't remember all of them, but we have all those people coming on board to support us. I think we left the trust and pride in the Guild of Students. We left that sense of connectedness, we left that sense of command and effective communication. And most importantly, we left standard and professionalism. I think that is a trademark of the Guild of Students 2019, 2021. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And of course, I can attest to that in no uncertain terms. Thatcher is she's naturally a people's person. And so if you're working with Thatcher, you have no other choice but to be a people's person. When there are events on campus, Thatcher says, come, we're going, we have to go and support. And so this whole idea of not what you do for people, not what you say, but how you make them feel. I really think Thatcher embodies that. And so Thatcher, I thank you for well, it was my pleasure to serve on the
It was a pleasure serving with you as well.
Definitely. So we're going to close out with Osazi, but Osazi, make for you, because certainly your tenure has just started. So what I want you to do is to publicly say what you want your legacy to be. And in doing that, of course, you're opening the bag for people to criticize you and to watch your every move. And if you are so moved to share with us what you want your legacy to be at the end of it.
Okay, so I mean, I could one take off piece of Tasha's point where, you know, make sure people, I will find a way to do it. But with respect to the legacy and the scrutiny I mentioned, I feel as though my entire council, like coming in, was kind of gifted the scrutiny, whether we like not, whether we publicly stated our goals. I feel as though we have a kind of unique opportunity, even though it was we inherited and a lot of issues. Because of how it happened, because of the atmosphere campus around election. Genuinely willing to serve. And so I feel as though I'm blessed with an amazing council who actually try and doing the best to get things done. And so even though I have a lot of things I have to do because we have us, I feel as though I could trust that my commuter's rep going to be up whole day the shuttle system in a mess right now. But I know she's like working her hardest to try to get it solved. And if they could, you know, meet their objectives, the entire world would be able to solve like a good bit of problems. But also I think, as I say, working on the processes and not just working on it, but documenting it properly. The constitution and the financial process really ensure that we don't end up in a situation like what happened last time where somebody could swindle away money. And even
allegedly,
even like,
brother, you gotta be careful.
no, I it's not alleged anymore. Documents pass and things, people get found guilty. But anyway, let me move on from that. Just, you know, fix the processes, because that's really what's gonna stay. And the reputation, as I was gonna say, the reputation of the guild. Initiatives like this, coming back with a bang for Freshers Week was important, but like Guild Week, bringing back Guild Week to show people, you know, the guild have like this kind of history, show people that, you know, we doing things is a serious institution. And this year, well, next year, would be the 60th anniversary of the university, which means it's the 60th anniversary of the guild, because the guild was in the original charter. And so we could, you know, along with celebrating 60 years of guild advocacy, push through some history, make sure the students get behind the guild. And as it relates to outside of the university, I have something that I feel as though we could push nationally, regionally. I want to take it to ICGC the next time to get the other presidents on board so we could advocate, you know, at a bigger level. But, you know, the first step, fixing the guild, fixing home, fixing the little issues we have, fixing the council, ensuring everybody on the same boat and running in the same way, same direction. And I really think or hope that, I mean, I don't think it's going to be hard to leave the guild better than I found it, but in general, just lifting the bar of the guild in terms of the types of personalities on the guild, what the purpose of the guild is, how seriously they take their job, the kind of dedication that they could get from guild counselors. I think that might be what I really want to achieve.
All right, thank you very much for that. And with that, David Tajigana, Damani Paris, Delano D'Souza, Kai Bridgewater in his absence, Tasha Loughton, and of course, Mr. Osaze Meraldo Boyne. It was my absolute pleasure being in your company this evening. Thank you guys for taking the time out to be here. Thank you for your insight. Thank you for your information. Thank you for your advice. And most of all, thank you simply for your presence. And so I'm going to turn it over now to the Vice President of the Guild of Students, Ms. Stephanie Pascal, to close us out.
Hi guys, I'm hoping my Wi-Fi keeps up. to allow me to give a proper outro. I just, again, thank you so much to the panelists. It really was a fruitful discussion. And I think outside of just the students, I think my counselors in particular really enjoyed it. I think we learned a lot from it, and I think it's going to do a lot for us in terms of us serving the guild and how we can implement that. So thank you for your words of wisdom. I just want to say that we are still in Guild Week. Again, our theme for this week is rebuilding our core foundation. So communication, organization, responsibility, and ethics. Tomorrow, we are going to have our general meeting, in-person general meeting that we'll be experiencing in 2-3 years. So I'm really excited. No, honestly, Sal Wi-Fi is terrible, guys. It is terrible. Like, I planned this panel and I really wanted to moderate it, but it was just not going to happen. So I just let Ravi handle it, and he did a very good job. So but yeah, tomorrow is our general meeting. On Thursday, we are going to do firstly outreach. As Dominique said, the guild not just has a responsibility to its students, but also to the wider national community. And so we really do want to give back. We are going to have outreach in the morning, and then in the evening, we're going to have a games night in the guild union building. So come on down, going to have Uno, Dominoes, Twister, those types of, nice chill vibes. On Friday, we are going to try and do our BLM again. Hopefully given our communications with security and administration, we're hoping it's gonna be executed properly this time around. We're trusting that it will be okay. And then on Saturday, we end our week off with our headline event, all sets, our Pump Your Flag integration lines. So make sure you'll buy your tickets, make sure you'll come out. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, and we look forward to executing for the rest of the week. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, and have a great evening. Cheers.
You're welcome. Good night.
Good night.
Good evening to you. Good evening. Can't believe I'm if it's not waking.